Hello, everyone. Welcome again to this new episode of our Sales and Leadership podcast. Today, we will be covering on the proven sales methodologies and the topics that we have started. We were discussing over the past few episodes. This is our third episode. As we go along, we'll be discussing some of the topics that are left over. We may be able to cover some today, and then we'll try to cover some in our next episode, and most likely in next couple of episodes we'll wrap it up. The purpose of having these podcasts is to basically add value to your lives and make you much more efficient and effective sales leaders and sales people as you go along in your career and your journey. All what we're doing here is sharing what we have learned throughout our career, and we would like to make your life valuable. My name is Wajid Ali. I am based in Toronto, Canada, and with me is my co-host, my friend, and my colleague and partner for this podcast, Simon Rodriguez. So I will put Simon up, and he can do his quick intro, and then we'll go as we go normally into the conversation.
Excellent. Thank you, Wajid, and good morning, everyone. Thanks again for joining our sales leadership podcast with this new session today. As Wajid mentioned, my name is Simon Rodriguez, and I've been working over the last almost 2 decades in professional sales, working mostly around technology, complex sales processes. And the main purpose, obviously, of these sessions is to share some of those experiences, lessons learned, and those insights, right, from our journey, and hoping that that is going to help you as you advance your professional journey into sales. Now, today we want to cover and it's continue that path into the sales methodologies that we tackle, we initiated in the previous session, framing why it's important to have a clear sales methodology, why it is important to have alignment between a sales methodology and your internal sales process. And also, we talked about the first two, and correct me if I'm wrong with it, but we covered the challenger sale in the first session, and also solution selling. Now, today we want to dive into value selling, and value selling is probably one of those methodologies that has been around for many years and still very successful. It seems to be one of the widely used methodologies, and that's going to be the focus of today's discussion. That's going to be the main takeaway. And perhaps with that, we can start by asking the question, and then I'll hand it over to you, Wajid, to frame the discussion, right? Like, why again is important for us to have that sales methodology, and what should we look for when it comes to applying a sales methodology, and then we can go into value selling specifically. Any thoughts on your end, Wajid?
No, thank you, Simon, for the intro and for setting the foundation for this podcast today. Essentially the purpose of bringing all these insights and why it is important is, again, we want to have a consistent and repeated success. We just don't want, for us and also for our sales leaders and salespeople out there, we just don't want them to feel like they don't have a process in place, they don't have a method in place, they can't have persistent or continuous success if you don't follow any given system or method or process. So I guess the thought process is, again, to make sure that there's something that we can look back on, there's something that we can go back to our drawing boards, and if something is not working, we can pivot. But at least we have some process or methodologies in place so that we can be more consistent, more persistent in our approach, and also we can get more continued success. So that's my thought to start with. Simon, I'll leave it to you to share your perspective, and then we can jump into this value selling methodology.
Yeah, certainly, Vijay. And I think that's the core reason is to have a framework that is consistent within the organization. And I think, to your point, you need to have alignment in order to measure what's working, what's being successful for the organization, and just to add into the possibility to potentially even use different sales methodology within one organization. That's not something unheard of, in which perhaps you use one of the methodologies for a stage of the sales process. Let's say for prospecting, perhaps you use solution selling, and then for closing, you might be leaning toward using a different methodology. So it's not like one size fits all. Different organizations. It's about understanding what is going to be more valuable to your company and to your sales process. Now, with that being said, we will move now into the third methodology that we're planning to cover in these sessions. The previous two, as we discussed, were the challenger sales and the solution selling approach. The next one that we're going to dive into today is value selling. Value selling, you may think also that overlaps a little bit with solution selling in terms of trying to basically address a particular pain point. And that's the premise of value selling. Value selling is a methodology and technique that focuses on highlighting the value of a solution and offering as opposed to features. We have seen all those cases and examples in which we're going to buy something, or perhaps we're seeing an opportunity where it's all about the product features, all about why this product is so great or this solution, and it doesn't focus on what is it that they're trying to solve. It doesn't focus on the pain point. And that's the perspective, that's the shift that value selling has, is looking at things from the pain optic, from that solution selling, and like solving a problem and adding that value to solving that particular problem. With that, I will start saying that the main three components that we see normally is value selling is, number one is identifying a pain point. And that goes back to having that open communication with your prospect, understanding those needs, any issues that they're facing, any challenges, and their main drivers, the main goals that they're trying to accomplish. Once you have identified that pain point, that you have that clear, then you tailor your solution, align your solution to highlight those benefits, right? How your service, your solution can help the customer address that pain point. That's the second aspect. The third one is demonstrating that return of investment, making sure that you, with facts and with clear details and data, you can show how that investment will provide a return for the customer while solving that problem. And then you can always customize the solution that you are presenting to that particular customer. That's obviously from a very high level. Again, the value selling methodology has been in use now, I think, for many years. It's probably one of the widely used methodologies. But I'm curious, Wajid, about your thoughts and perspective. Obviously, you have been at many global organizations, have used different methodologies. I'm curious about your take on value selling and how will be, a differentiator, and what would you highlight from this methodology in particular?
Absolutely, Simon. So as you described, on a high level, as you described the framework in the 3 steps, I think it's very important for us to understand, again, going back to the basics. But one of the comment that you made, I think it's very critical here for the audience to understand that there's no one method that fits all. So you need to understand maybe not all of the methodologies, but at least few of those methodologies that are in common practice, and then understand when and where to utilize them, understand when and where to bring them along in your sales process. It could be at the beginning discovery phase, or it could be at the end when you're closing the deal. So I think that's a great point that you made, and I wanted to make that that differentiation for our audience to understand that it's not just one methodology that we are promoting. We are just bringing the insights, and we want you to understand that there are many different methodologies you can use, and these are just high-level insight that we are bringing for you. You can go back to your drawing board, you can do your own research, and then you can pivot and find out which one is that works better for you. So I agree with you, Simon. When it comes to value selling, I feel like if you have to break it further down, that the first thing that we need to, I guess, as we always recommend, is to conduct your research, right? So as you said, the pain points and understanding the pain points. How would you understand the pain points? Is first understanding who you were talking to. It could be B2B, and most likely in this case, we're talking to B2B sales. But sometimes, there are a lot of sales functions or people that do B2C, right? So they go out and they sell to customers or individuals. Now, if we have that understanding of these methodologies, we can do B2C, we can do B2B, it is applicable to all these different approaches. So you do your own research, you understand who your customer are, spend some time, and then identify maybe similar personas, right? So if you were to go out into an industry manufacturing sector, if you're selling a product or solution or service to a manufacturing sector, you need to understand what are the common pain points. And if you start doing your research, you will pick maybe 3, 4, 5, whatever, 10 pain points, depending on how big or how granular you want to go. And then you go back to your solution or service or product that you have handy that you want to sell, and then do the comparison out of those 3 or 5 or 10 pain points that you have identified or highlighted. Which one of those you can solve and be authentic, right? You may not be able to kill all the problems or pain points, but maybe you're able to hit on 1 or 2, which can give which can add a lot of efficiencies and provide a lot of benefits to your clients and customers. So those are the 2 key insights, I guess, would be do your own research, and then be genuine, be authentic. Don't try to be so much overwhelmed that you feel like I have to do everything or otherwise I'm not valuable, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I like how you describe start by that initial value engagement, let's put it this way, right? Like reaching out, connecting with that prospect, then moving into what we will call value discovery and selling, and then ultimately that last stage into value delivery, right? Like how can you actually deliver that value? So that's another way to see it as well. Or another way to do this process and to implement it is looking at it into 3 buckets with value engagement, like reaching out, getting that prospect engagement, having that, let's say, lead qualification process, conversion. Once you convert from a lead into an opportunity, then you go into what you talked about with it, which is the value discovery and selling, going through those pain points, aligning your solution with the drivers, the business drivers, the customer, the prospect has in this case, then going through the whole process, also getting an internal champion. That's also something that is valuable in this type of processes, is having a champion within the organization, building a business case if that's something that will help you move your solution within the company, and then ultimately going to the negotiation and closing stage. And then you'll have a plan, obviously, to have the value delivery stage. So it's a good way to see it. Highlights, I think, as you mentioned, will be having that initial engagement with the customer, with the prospect, qualifying that prospect, moving into having those discovery sessions to identify pain, and then aligning your solution with those business drivers, with that pain, and building business cases you need, and then obviously moving into the final stage of the process. So it's very, I'll say, very intuitive when it comes to the way it works. It's pretty logical, and it's also quite conventional with the regular sales processes and methodologies we have seen throughout the years. But that being said, is there anything that stands out in particular when we look at different methodologies like the challenger sales, solution selling, that in your view sticks out or stands out in terms of value selling? What will be the main thing you will take from value selling that you think that is differentiator from the rest?
One thing that I always recommend to my sales team is, and you might have heard this from many other sales leaders and coaches and mentors, is listen more and talk less, right? So even in value selling, it's the same thing. You have to listen more to your clients, your customers, let them speak, and the more you listen and the less you talk makes you much more effective salesperson. So that's where I'm going to wrap it up. Simon, again, thank you for providing all those insight, and for the audience, for the listeners, I'm sure it was a useful session for you. Please leave your comments in the comment section, as you do always. And if there's anything that you are having problem with in your sales process, let us know and see how we can help add value to your life. Again, we will see you next week with a new episode and a new topic. Until then, take care and have a nice weekend.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thank you.